All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Problem Solver Politics live stream. Oh, I can't hear myself.
That's a you problem.
That's a me problem.
Yeah.
It's user error. Welcome to the Problem Solver Politics live stream this lovely and illustrious Wednesday evening. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah. That's the second day in a row where it's like, ding, not quite. Anyway, a lot going on today. Actually, I wouldn't say this is the first day, but this is one of those days where I just thought, I don't know. I'm very optimistic, Cody. Today I've lost a little bit of faith in humanity. Just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And
why today? Like what was so special about today? Today, the 17th of June, 2020, I believe it's a Wednesday. What was so different about today?
I'd say it was because you read a lot about the cops not showing up to work. And I got to tell you, you're never going to meet a more pro hold the cops accountable for their bad actions person in this world than me. I've been in a lawsuit against the LA County sheriffs that made it to the Supreme Court. Opening statements were read by Sotomayor. Okay. So I've been through the whole entire legal process of suing the cops. I know how difficult it is, and I know how devastating a corrupt cop in your life can be. Okay. Detective Ansbury is a corrupt POS cop that does horrible things to people. He's a detective in the LA County Sheriff's Department that was in my parents' case.
Hold on. So we're just gonna blast the okay.
So I know how bad corrupt cops can be. But I also know that you can't have a system and a public hatred or image that is so negative that good men don't want to step up to become cops. Does that make sense? So like any good system, there's bad apples, and you have to be able to weed out the bad apples. I work in pest control. You have to be able to exterminate the pest species while leaving the benevolent species still functioning. You have to find a way to get rid of the black widows without killing the honeybees, if you get what I'm saying, right? And it just seems like there's always been a lack of nuance, but there's been enough where I believe in humanity. But today's been rough.
Okay, but again, no offense. Once again, back to the original question. What's about today?
Entire departments quitting? Come on, man.
Well, have they?
Well, not showing up to work.
It is pretty bad in
Hollandale, Atlanta.
Well, hold on.
You have good men that would rather. I mean, they know for a fact that by them not showing up, major crimes are going to be committed. Okay,
hold on.
And
one second.
Yes.
Not everyone's Cardin Ellis, so let's try to walk through what's going on.
Okay.
So what's actually going on, this is rumors that are being passed around. This individual, Seth Leathers, put this out. And actually, in a few minutes, that'll be fun. We can actually listen into the police scanners for a little bit and see what is going on in Atlanta. But there's a lot of rumors brewing, and apparently, according to this individual, sources have confirmed that in Atlanta, PD zones 3 and 6 would be the southeast area of Atlanta, have a 20 to 30 cops walk off. That's half of an entire shift. So just a little bit of a catch up on what is going on and why this would happen in Atlanta right now. In Atlanta, there was the shooting. Don't remember how many days ago it was. A few days ago, an individual at a Wendy's. There's been a few nights of unrest. However, happened in the past. What happened today was the Attorney General of Georgia, I believe, came out and announced that actually it's pretty crazy. I want to see if I can pull this up for you guys. He not only announced in his press conference that he would be. Let me get the article up for you guys. Sorry, 1 second. I want you to see this. Not only would he be charging the primary officer involved for the actual shooting with murder, he actually had, I believe, stated that the partner, which they had also charged the litany of crimes, was agreeing to flip and turn state's evidence against the officer to prosecute him for murder, which I thought murder was going to be hard to prove. However, it appears they maybe could. We'll look at that again in a second. I just have the law pulled up for Georgia, what is considered murder in Georgia, and it appears that perhaps they probably could actually convict this guy for murder, especially if indeed it is true that his partner is basically flipping state's evidence against him. Anyway, in response to this is why we have seen what's going on in Atlanta, which is widespread reports that in zones 3 and 6 of Atlanta, police officers have basically just said they will not be showing up to work.
See, I would not have taken the actions that he took. He had a taser pointed at him. it can be a lethal weapon if you're incapacitated, because then somebody could draw your gun and just kill you. So this idea that he didn't have a lethal weapon pointed at him is stupid. However, in my view, as an armchair quarterback of the situation, I wouldn't have taken those shots. But at the same time,
I have a question, Card.
What?
Speaking of armchair quarterback, how many times have you pointed the gun at someone and then make a decision on what to do with it? I'm not even saying good or bad. I'm just saying, like, honestly, man, like, who knows?
It
right?
depends on the kilos.
I honestly have literally no idea how I would have reacted in that situation. I would like to think I would have
I've fought
reacted
guys
better.
with guns. You ever been robbed at gunpoint?
Not robbed, but I've had somebody literally pull up in front of me in a canyon, stop their big ass truck in front of me, get out and threaten me with a gun. I've had that happen.
Well, that's pretty hardcore, dog. I've gotten in fights with guys with guns, but they were high and I didn't necessarily think I was actually going to get shot, and I was really angry and I wanted to beat the crap out of them. But anyway, that's a different story for a different day.
Really quickly, sorry, I just want to run through some of the news in the background and then we'll get that really quickly.
Oh, okay.
So I want to go through what's going on.
I get it.
It's one thing to say cops aren't showing up for work in Atlanta, but I want to show you guys this again. So, fire Atlanta police officer Garrett Rolfe charged with felony murder in the shooting death of Rayshard Brooks. So let's go through this article from today. A former Atlanta police officer, Garrett Rolfe, was charged Wednesday with 11 counts, including felony murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon in the killing of Rayshard Brooks, the latest in a string of black people dying after altercations with police. If convicted, Rolfe is facing the possibility of the death penalty or life in prison. Interesting. Arrest warrants have been issued for Rolfe and fellow officer Devin Brosnan, who was also at the scene and is facing lesser charges. This is what's interesting as you come down here, that Brosnan was charged as a partner with with aggravated assault, among other offenses, but according to Howard, Attorney General, he's cooperating with prosecutors and is willing to testify against Rolfe. Howard said this is the first time that has happened in 40 such cases. Rolfe was fired after shooting, while Brosnan was placed on leave. That is pretty crazy to me that according to the actual footage of the situation, it is weird that he'd be doing that. But at the same time, like, I mean, if your literal partner's willing to flip on you and turn state's evidence, I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah, I was about going to say that is a game changer, because if the partner were there saying, no, look, things just got heated, I would never want to ask another man to become a police officer and to defend my constitutional rights and the rights of my fellow citizens and then just fry him the second things get hot. I wouldn't want to do that. But just like I know some corrupt cops can be POSs, you got to listen to Jock Willenick talking with Joe Rogan, their segment on police training and how it is different than Navy SEAL training, and how the average policeman only gets 4 hours of training a year. And that Jocko Willenick actually gave a lot of data suggesting that it's not recruiting that's the problem. It's not race that's the problem. It's just the lack of decompression and constant training that is the problem. One of the best 30 minutes you can hear between two individuals out in podcasting besides this show. You know what I'm saying? So I would never want to hang a guy out to dry just because something got heated. To me, that's a betrayal of the badge. But also, if he's got a partner that's willing to step forward and is kind of saying like, look, dude, this guy's been trigger happy from day one and he was looking for an excuse to shoot, and I think what he did was murder. Well, then that's hardcore. And that's why my mind is still, I don't have a settled thought on this yet. My initial reaction is I bristle at lampooning a guy. You know what I'm saying? But who knows? A lot of it's going to depend on what the that partner says.
That's why also there's body cam footage of the entire incident, which is also interesting.
Well, we've all seen the body cam footage.
But that's interesting. It would mean to me that to your point, it would seem that this, and again, just
it seemed relatively normal concerning the body cam.
But that aside, because the footage of the incident does exist, you would imagine, to your point, yeah, the guy his partner would be testifying to his mindset going into, and just basically he'd be testifying to what this partner did around the shooting of the video, right? Because it's kind of weird to have a witness testify that yes, indeed, the video we're being seen is real. But yeah. I didn't think about that. That's a really good point. Yeah, he's probably going to testify to what he was saying before or after the incident took place. However, that definitely, as they mentioned, is the first time. Sorry, I'm turning the air conditioner on. It's getting hot in here. But they mentioned that was one of the first times in 40 cases where they've had it. Because that's crazy. I mean, you think about the thin blue line or whatever, but I mean, a police officer is literally willing to work with the state and testify against his partner. That doesn't, I would guess, is abnormal. But then really quickly,
well, hold on a second. No, it's not abnormal, because of all the internal affairs complaints, and usually the vast majority of complaints against cops is generally from other cops. cops filing anonymous complaints, cops filing non-anonymous complaints saying, look, dude, this person is using excessive force. I've been trained and I know that he's doing this.
But not anonymous complaints. I mean, like, I will testify on the stand against him. I mean, that's, if he's going to become a witness for the prosecution, that's what it would be. I mean, maybe he could just have a written statement, but they probably would have him come in and testify. That sounds kind of crazy. And just really quickly going back too, because you'll hear, I mean, for example, in the George Floyd case, which seemed a lot more closer to a murder than, well, legal definitions are, but like a unjust killing, probably more so than the other, I would say. Just hate to compare them, right? But if you were to look at one that seemed a little bit more like what the hell's going on here, even that officer wasn't charged with murder. So let's look up in Georgia, what is murder? Here's the thing. The charges don't actually matter. If you charge someone with a crime they didn't actually commit, they'll just walk away free. So you want to make sure people are getting charged with crimes they could be found guilty of. Just saying he could potentially.
And if you overreach, you run the risk. Like if a guy is really guilty of just negligent manslaughter, of killing somebody through negligence, but you accuse him of murder one, which is murder with intent. And in order to get murder one, you have to check so many more boxes than you do for the other things. Exactly. You might let a guy that's guilty of negligent manslaughter walk free.
Let's go through really quickly what it is in Georgia when they consider murder. So it's a person commits the offense of murder when he unlawfully and with malice afterthought, which is interesting, either expresses or implies.
No, forethought, I think it says.
Oh, you're right.
It has to be forethought.
You're right. I read that. Yeah. Anyway, though, express malice is that deliberate intention unlawfully take the life. But anyway, I want to go through all this stuff because what's a little interesting is they mention that a person also commits the offense of murder when in the commission of a felony, he causes the death of another human being irrespective of malice. Yeah. So, it sounds like potentially, I'm not a lawyer, but
here's the problem.
They prove he was guilty of a felony.
What's the felony?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But I'm just saying that could be it. I'm not here to litigate what should or shouldn't happen. I'm just kind of going through what
this is important, though, because when you're a cop, your job, pulling over a guy and arresting him, is not a felony. Therefore, he is not in the act of committing a felonious activity.
Okay, again.
And he's also not. This is why it's an overreach, and I think it's bad.
They gave him 11 charges. Maybe one of them is. I just thought that was interesting because I believe in some states, yes, you would have to prove that like the officer intended to kill him before he even showed up. But it does seem in the state, they say as long as you could prove that this happened during a felony, which probably isn't that unique to other states, they could go down for murder. That's really interesting, just going through it. And however, though, what that has led to is it had led to reports that in a couple districts, Atlanta police are just not showing up tonight. I don't work for the Atlanta police. I don't know exactly what it is they are saying for why that is. I mean, I can obviously feel if they feel like they're not being if they don't feel like doing their job is worth it anymore and they feel like the department's not worth working for, I guess I could see them walking off.
Well, you're going to get rolled, man. I wouldn't sign up to be a cop right now. Are you kidding me? Because
right now, when were the times you did plan on signing? Because I'll be honest, I was planning on being a cop. Literally never. I probably never would be one. I don't want to be one.
Okay,
I don't see myself ever wanting to be one. So I don't know.
I'm just saying that I'd be a cop. I think it'd be fun. It'd be cool. Have a chance to protect and serve a little bit.
When and where? What would you give up to be
I've
one?
always
would you quit your job?
No, it's not been job number one. But I'm just saying I could see myself doing it and enjoying it if I, if what the plans that I'm working on now didn't work out. But that's beside the point. The point is that generally people that get involved in this, in my experience, have been somewhat ideologically motivated. They've had a heightened sense of good and evil. They've wanted to help protect the innocent against that evil. And they've really, really believed in law enforcement, what it does and what it stands for. Okay. And because of that, they've been willing to put up with an abnormal threat to their livelihood, their existence, their families, and their bottom line and their paycheck. Kind of like being a teacher. You're ideologically motivated. You're willing to accept less pay because you think you're helping those future citizens of America. All right. Dude, that's all gone now because now we're saying, look, go out there. And if you don't police, then you're racist. You're negligent. You're this, you're that. If you over police, then you're racist. You're negligent. You're going to jail. Like, you better walk this thin line in which you will just dice apart every move you make with a fine-tooth comb. And by the way, if something went wrong, man, you're on your own.
But like that's literally just the issue.
That's what we're saying right now.
Okay, we're saying what we always say. We're saying that, things tend to roll downhill. When people complain to the government, oh, you think the Congress? Yeah, does a congressman ever resign? Do senators? I mean, sometimes, but do assembly people, do state representatives, they ever resign? No, it just rolls downhill to whoever they can pass it off to. You resign. Why should I have to? They don't care. They just move on down. Who has the least power and influence, realistically, ironically enough? The literal police officers.
Yeah.
So departments just sell them out. They do what they do. They're flipping their partners against them. And I guess people are like, well, if my employer is going to say, look, I'm getting help from the governor, who's getting help from the media, who's getting help from, the senator or whatever, they're just going to walk off the job because it's... Most people, I have to imagine, even cops probably stay out of a lot of the ideological stuff. And people just tend to. They just go about their days for whatever reason. I don't know why. And a lot of them probably like, look, man, I don't care. Don't want to deal with this. But I thought, well, let's listen. Because you can literally pull up, I don't know for how many guys you don't know this. I mean, it's just, you're allowed to just pull up scanners for police and stuff. So this is in Zone 6 where allegedly we have seen. Now, I'm assuming by this point they would have moved officers to other areas, right? But I think it's interesting to listen and see what actually is going on with it. So this should be playing.
Let's listen.
In the background right now. No, it's, Wednesday evening in Atlanta at about, what would that be, 9 p.m. Eastern, I believe. Can't imagine to be off the hook in East Atlanta. I will say, when I used to work as a local journalist, though, it's playing in the background here, the static, I used to listen to our local police scanners. Just mostly to listen for fires. We have a lot of fires out here. Police and fire scanners, emergency scanner. But normally you would hear stuff every now and then. I mean, pretty frequently. You'd be surprised in a metropolitan area. A lot of people driving around, hey, reports of this, reports of that. So it is interesting to hear that so far it's been nothing. I'm assuming someone else has been some.
While you're listening to this scanner, I got a couple of interesting comments here. A lot of people have decided to opine on whether or not you'd be a good cop, Cody. Dustin says a lot of bullied kids are cops. You weren't bullied as a kid. You were the bully. So you won't be a cop, I guess. And Ricky Allion says Cody would be a terrible cop, a little too soft. But you got somebody defending you here saying, Suvanavong says Cody would do a good job being a cop. I can see Cody has conversations with citizens. So I think you'd be a good cop, Cody.
Depends.
Would you have a BA 357 Magnum like Clint Eastwood?
I have no interest in enforcing the state's rules. Okay, but you can hear some stuff going on in the background.
Is working tonight? Yeah, that works.
Did he just say, is Joey working tonight?
Couldn't hear. I was just checking in, like I said, to see. I've heard reports that the scanners are actually silent. There's nothing going on them. I've heard reports that they're fine. But yeah, it does appear in this Zone 6 East. I don't live in Atlanta, but just from following, suburban LA's dispatch, this does sound, I don't know, quiet. But again, I don't live there. Maybe this is pretty normal for this part of town. I have no idea. But it is kind of interesting to keep in mind. It's one thing to just also keep this in mind for anyone who wants just. You literally are allowed to just listen in on this stuff for wherever you live. You can pull up your local area scanner and just listen to how dispatch talks to the officers or deputies or wherever you live. Doesn't mean it's just a right we have, but just the citizens are allowed to hear this. They do have some closed channels, but dude, I remember during the riots that were going on a week or two ago, I was listening to these. You would imagine sometimes they would say put this on a closed channel, but it was coordinating how many people are going where, what do they look like, what's going on. So generally do your chatter. Again, don't live in Atlanta, but I would have to imagine it's kind of weird hearing nothing going on I guess 9 p.m. Maybe there is truly nothing going on. Again, who knows? But interesting. I'm not going to listen to it all night, I guess, but just speaks to, I guess we are seeing in Atlanta this, with the events kind of the way they've gone on. It is scary to think about. I mean, this is, again, from a conservative radio host, I believe, who said that he allegedly got this email from someone who is allegedly an Atlanta police officer. Honestly, some of the stuff, I'm a little bit less interested in 1,000% how real it is, because who knows? But this is legitimately...
It's a sentiment.
Yeah, this is the discussions that are going on. I'm trying to show you. So this is from a Steve Dice saying, just got this email from Atlanta police officer. Atlanta police officers are refusing to answer the radio and walking off the job. The county can go screw themselves. If you want a society without police, we'll give you one. Let it burn. Is it real or not? Who knows? But this sentiment does seem to be echoed a lot currently, especially tonight.
Now, see, this is my question: is when does the looting start? When does the burning start? When do the murders start? I mean, I got to tell you right now, if that 0.1% of us are all sociopathic and murderous, and I had a vendetta, there was an unsettled score, and I didn't have the moral conviction not to commit murder because thou shalt not murder, according to the 10 Commandments. If I were just a normal dude that was still pissed, and I thought, you know what? I could go over and I could settle that score right now. And ain't no cops going to show up. And I could get away with it because nobody would know it was me. I mean, you can't tell me there's not those people in this world. You can't tell me that there's not pissed off Antifa dudes that want to do this to the local conservative radio host, and then there's not local conservative people that want to settle the score with some liberal dude.
Unless the entire city of Atlanta, which who knows what's going on, is in flames, they'd probably just move officers from one area over to the other.
Yeah, but you're still spread so thin.
There's a potential, but I'm saying there's a potential that more or less nothing really happens tonight. Over time, yeah, we'll see. But I would say tonight potentially could be opposite. Could be what you said, everything, but it could be they just move people over and things don't go that crazy tonight.
So Audie Presley says it's called the Second Amendment. People in the hood handle their own business. Hey, man, that's what the Black Panthers did. Strelenikov says all police need to walk out. Hey, chat, let us know your opinion here. I think sometimes these drastic measures are important because the citizenry needs to understand just how difficult being a cop is and how much we truly are dependent upon them. And then also the cops need to understand how you can't just be roughing up the locals without the people hating you. You know, this is a sword that needs to be sharpened, and each edge has to go up against itself so that we really do are able to split those hairs and that fine line of defending the Constitution and doing good policing. So, I mean, I'm getting all kinds of reports here from people in the chat. A couple of people are actually from Atlanta saying that there's more than that are just they're just walking out. But
I'm sure. I mean, that's what the initial reports I heard were zones 4 through and 6. 3 and 6 have been the more recent zones. But yeah, like here's the thing: even if it isn't a organized mass walkout, people could be walking out of various areas. And I do think it's just one of the kind of
how's their leadership right now? Because they just barely had their chief of police quit.
Exactly. That's, I mean,
and then so who's the newbie?
Imagine this: the chief of police just quit, and there's going to be a high-profile murder case with one officer turning witness against the other one. Would you want to work for that department? It's like, wow, man. What does it mean when the captain just walks off the ship and says, "Later, guys"? Do you think it's a good place to be? Like you're going to hang around there and things will turn around?
Yeah.
Because yeah, those were doing. To your point, yes, the Atlanta police commissioner, I believe, resigned as soon as the officers involved in the shooting were fired, I believe. I might be wrong in why. I think I heard that though. She was like, "Look, if they're gonna make me fire you guys, I can't do this job anymore. I got to resign."
Why did she resign though? Was it just her statement, or?
I'll look more into that. If you want to look it up for me too, if you can.
Yeah, I've actually been trying to look it up for the past little while.
What's fascinating to me is this: just days before this all went down in Atlanta. See if I can pull the article up for you guys.
Okay.
The mayor of Atlanta was added to, I believe, the short list to be the Biden VP.
Interesting.
Yeah, this was June 8th. LA Times is the biggest mafia in the world. I swear to God, I've paid them 5 times, and they just asked for more money. So I'm going to go down to this article instead.
Business Insider.
This is a Business Insider article. Wow. From June 14th, but I believe I've seen, hopefully they mentioned originally when this came, but the article is called "Joe Biden has narrowed down his list of candidates to vice president and 4 black women of color are in contention." So they mentioned that according to the Washington Post, Senator Kamala Harris, former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, Florida Rep. Val Demings, and Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms are all on the short list. Now, however, what's interesting is, I think it was like June 4th the news came out, and I think the shooting was like on the 6th, the 5th of June. Might have my timetable wrong. But what's weird about that, I'm not going to get conspiratorial, but just coincidence-wise, is the other person who was on the short list to be Joe Biden's VP, remember, was a Mrs. Amy Klobuchar. Now, she was not literally the mayor of the city at the time, but she was the prosecutor for the city of Minneapolis for a couple of years, and then shortly there was conflict there. It's really weird. I'm not saying it's related, but it's just like, it sucks for them, I'd have to say, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Biden likes how she's handling it, but maybe you could say it's a good test. Maybe it's good for them. It'll help her be the VP. I don't know. But it is interesting. Definitely. I would think it'll probably work against him because someone else is like, well, I didn't have this really tough incident. But if she navigates it well, I would say the police commissioner stepping down and officers just walking off is probably like not good. But I don't know. Maybe I can't imagine Biden likes it. But
so I never really understood why the police chief had actually quit, but I've read a couple of articles and they all have the same exact quote. And it just says, she had said herself, she'd been there for 3.5 years, and her name is Erica Shields. And she's, quote, known as a staunch ally of police officers who work closely with unions. Shields simultaneously championed progressive policies such as levying lengthy suspensions in use of force incidents and mandating the body cameras be on at all times. Okay, fine. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily progressive as much as protecting your cops. Like, body cameras can do just as much to exonerate innocent cops as it can to catch the bad ones. So I don't know if that's necessarily a progressive idea as just much as a good idea. But it says Shields resigned hours after White House officers shot and killed Rashard Brooks, who was black, on Friday night after a DUI stop. Names a couple of more details where we all know he was asleep in the drive-thru, which seems like a legitimate reason why somebody would call in and why a police officer would show up. But it says for the city to move forward and to build trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. I don't know necessarily how her resigning actually does that.
I'll tell you what it does do.
Gets her out of the way.
It makes this mess someone else's problem. That's what it felt like. Like, as soon as that happened, she was like, "Welp, not gonna happen under me. I'm just quitting." And I can't say I blame her, because you know what her officers are doing? They're saying, "Welp, I'm not gonna happen to me. I'm just quitting." You can hear the static again in the background. This is that scanner. I don't live in Atlanta. I cannot imagine it's normal for the scanner to essentially just be dead quiet, because a lot of times it's just them saying, "Like, I'm going over here. Cool."
Or yeah, just
when you get there, we're gonna leave. God, like there's nothing. There's not even the nothing chatter. Because I mean, I've heard reports that it's greater than these zones, but this is creepy because I have to imagine something's going on in Atlanta. I mean, car crash, all kinds of random stuff police get called to, and if this is what we can expect, because just because you don't hear anything from their dispatch, anything's going on. So it is creepy. It is weird. It is eerie to hear that. But what if the police just? I mean, I don't know if calling the bluff's the best term for it. What if they just say, "Fine, we are walking off the job," and they do? You don't have to abolish or defund us. We just won't show up. LAPD is probably going to have some. I have to imagine people are going to stop showing up for LAPD. LAPD crewed up millions in overtime. They're just never going to pay them.
Yeah.
During the protests, I can't imagine people will keep showing up for that.
Because I mean,
still you can hear nothing. It's just silence.
And who does that benefit?
Who knows who it benefits?
Yeah, the criminals, the creeps.
For how long, though?
Dude, if I were trafficking in humans right now, I would be doing all my business right now because I know they're not pulling me over.
For how long?
I'm not worried about speeding right now. Let me tell you that. Cops around town are not giving speeding tickets right now. They're not checking license plate numbers. They're not doing any of the regular traffic stuff.
I've heard
they're just looking around waiting for a brick to get thrown at them.
I've heard unconfirmed reports that they said basically people aren't looking to the police aren't looking to respond to anything short of like literally someone with a gun and is shooting.
Yeah,
people.
Exactly.
Anything short of that tonight, they're stretched pretty thin. Unconfirmed, just rumors, but it is pretty crazy. I mean, still just silence. Just a little tick of something, but
yeah,
it really does truly sound tonight like there because during the I don't generally hear things this quiet ever anywhere. Even here where we live, where things are fairly quiet. I don't know much about the southeast portion of Atlanta. Maybe that's the quieter part of Atlanta. I mean, for a major city to just have this, and we can listen to others, but weird stuff, man. It's really weird, and it also is a little bit too though of I mean, it's one thing that I've been kind of looking at for a while, and that is that the people kind of I don't say the left, but it did definitely felt like there hasn't been a move in response yet from the actual the government or the police.
Yeah.
This might be it, to just quit, to just walk off, and it might sound like this, which is honestly, like I said, kind of eerie to hear just silence like this.
This is what it's like in the zombie apocalypse, bro. When you're listening to the police scanner, you're not hearing all kinds of craziness. You're hearing all kinds of nothingness. So I gotta say, this is a tough one for me because I get the rage, okay? But at the same time, this can't be how we're reacting as a people.
Well, also, just to add in, there's also reports that nearby sheriff departments and other police departments are being asked for aid by the mayor of Atlanta. And there's reports that they're being
but
denied.
why would they give it?
There's reports they're not.
Why would they give it? Are you kidding me? If you asked me for aid, I'd be like, yeah, what? So you can sue me? You guys have big budgets.
Okay, according to
for cop cases, we got small budgets. I don't want to be footing your bill.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can hear. I've had this. If you hear the static in the background, that's the scanner. It's kind of hard to hear silence, but that scanner. I mean, if I turn it off, it sounds like that, right?
Yeah.
According to I just want to say this, sorry. According to someone in chat, they said that the quieter part of Atlanta would be the northern part, not the southern. Like that's pretty northern part of the like a busy part of the city, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. For any of you guys who've been to Atlanta, it's beautiful. It's actually super cool. I really like Atlanta, and it breaks my heart to see that this is what's going on and this is exactly what it's come to. But I agree with Jocko Willenick on this one, that we're not going to have to defund the police. How we've absolutely vilified them at this point, that they're going to walk off. See, this is what people forget, okay? That this what's happening to the police right now, wholesale, is what's happened in California. The elites and the government of California that has perpetually vilified the middle class, vilified white people as racist, vilified anybody that, you know, wants to fight the increase in property taxes or illegal immigration as bigoted or whatever. People can move. There is a mass exodus out of California right now. We're losing 45,000 people a month. In New York, what's happening? You've got Andrew Cuomo saying, we hope to God that the rich don't just leave. Because this isn't the USSR. There's not a fence that keeps you in. There's not a wall that protects you from fleeing, okay? You literally can say, this sucks, I'm leaving. And that's what cops are doing. Californian citizens are doing it, and we are hemorrhaging the middle class. We're becoming a feudal state where there's basically the uber wealthy that work at Apple, that work in the entertainment industry, that own the companies, and then there's the Russian serfs below them that work for these companies. And there's no more middle class. Okay? And that's what's happening in New York. You've got the poor and you've got the wealthy, and everybody's vilifying every traditional institution, including law enforcement. And then now in Atlanta, I mean, look, maybe that guy is a crooked cop. Maybe. Let's interview his cops. Let's get in his head. Let's get his intent. Let's watch those body cams. Let's let this settle. But guess what? If he wasn't, and in a heated situation, he made a bad choice. Yes, bad choicing as a law enforcement officer does not make you a murderer. Might make you incompetent. It might mean that policing's not for you. And it might mean that we all need to up our game in training. But we send these guys out there after a 6-week academy, an 8-week academy, at tops a 12-week academy, 2-3 months of training. Half of that is book work. And then they on average get 2 to 4 hours, I think, per year of like combat training. There's no physical requirements later.
Can I ask you a question real quickly though? Do you truly believe?
Yeah.
Again, you can hear the silence. Nobody's picking up any calls in Zone 6 of Atlanta PD at least. Who knows who else? And just we heard some tropes before, they're gone now. It's just been this forever. Do you think any of the people not showing up for work today are like, yeah, you know what? If I had more training hours, I'd feel more confident to show up to work tonight? You think any one of them saying that?
I think, I'll tell you this much right now.
No, hold on. Do you think any one of them legitimately cares about how much training they get at this point?
Oh, no, because they don't feel like anybody's got their back. That's why. Moving forward, we need to focus on training. And if I'm getting more continuing education as a pest control professional than a law enforcement officer is in different forms of training, then there's something wrong. These guys need time to decompress. Okay? They work in vicious scenarios. I mean, I've read a bunch of these open letters that police officers have sent out, and I've had friends who were police officers. And man, I got to tell you, one day they walk in on a mother who is psycho that stabbed her own 11-month-old to death. And, the police officer that shows up is trying to give CPR to an 11-month-old who just got stabbed by a psychotic mom. And then the next day, it's a wife that got beat by a husband. You know what I'm saying? And then the next day, it's I remember he was talking about how he helped this woman whose eye had got hit out. I don't know how an eye gets hit out, but it was like dangling from a domestic dispute. I mean, it's a brutal job that I can imagine only gives you some form of PTS or some kind of trauma and difficulty. And they're just doing it full time. So I think that, I don't want to say it's easy to make a bad decision in a way that I'm justifying it, but I'm saying I could see how maybe taking under a lot of stress for a prolonged period of time, how somebody can make a bad choice to withdraw a lethal weapon in response to what many would not consider a necessarily lethal situation, especially when a guy's walking away.
Okay, wait 1 second.
So I don't want to lampoon the
though,
guy.
Ultimately, though,
Yeah.
gotta be honest, man. I don't really care about what happened there. I have no input. I have no say.
Yeah.
Ultimately, if people had faith in the courts and the system, nobody else would care either. If you thought justice would be served to those who deserve it,
that's true.
Why would we think that we have to sit here and litigate? Well, no offense, because anyone thinks. None of us are the judge or the jury. It matters what the judge, the jury, the prosecution, and the defense think and say.
And
anyone else, it's nice, but like until
and we all know where this is going.
But until like faith is restored in those institutions, nothing anyone says on TV or at home or on a live stream matters.
Well, and both sides are guilty here.
Who gives what sides? I don't know what sides there are. It's just
Well, I'll tell you what sides are. The corrupt police unions that have protected corrupt cops for decades.
There's multiple sides. But before quickly, I want to just move on and say one thing.
And an ungrateful public that doesn't know how hard the job is.
That's it. Wow. Life is so simple in Cardin land. But I want to reference this. CNN has now confirmed that Atlanta police officers are not answering some 911 calls, and they mention here in the article that indeed it appears that Atlanta police officers are not responding to calls in 3 zones. Multiple sources have confirmed within the Atlanta Police Department, or at least they have not confirmed. They've told CNN, but again, you could hear in the background there's nothing. It's just silence.
Yeah, so John Lemaine says, "High grade. I don't think justifies using a lethal weapon against a taser is very good for police officers." Well, the question is who has a gun? A taser can incapacitate you, and if you have a gun and you've been incapacitated, somebody can just come up, draw your weapon, and shoot you in the head. It's that simple.
Okay, but is it that simple? Who knows? Like, this is the thing that's funny. It's like, do any of us actually know like Georgia law, like code, like what the police should and shouldn't be doing? If you don't, shut up. That includes me. I know that. I don't know what the hell they're supposed to do in that situation legally, because ultimately, that's for the courts to decide. We don't get to say, even though you're within the law, whatever, off with your head. We don't do that in America.
No, I get that I'm not a legal judge, but I'm saying in the court of public opinion, there's common sense.
Okay,
and the common
does
sense
the court of public opinion try people?
All the time.
Okay, and what happens when they find you guilty?
You get canceled, your house gets burned down, and the people that burned it down don't go to prison or get jail sentences.
Sometimes, allegedly, maybe. But when you get found guilty by the real courts, they put you in jail for life or kill you.
Okay.
So it's definitely serious what they do. It's just, dude, I can't tell you from the videos, literally, according to everything. I was just trying to look through the laws. What is murder in Georgia? It's different in different states. What is assault with a deadly weapon, I believe what they used. The way I was reading it didn't make a lot of sense to me. Sounds like assault with a deadly weapon is when you use a weapon to when you're using a gun to try to murder somebody. But if that's a felony, then you could use that as the felony that you were using to justify murder. But that's weird. How can you justify it was indeed murder because they used a gun to do it?
Yeah.
Anyway, my point being, I have no idea that a lawyer, a judge. And how about this? The prosecution could have an awful case against this detective, right? And the defense could have a home run case, nail it. And the judge could ask that jury, can you prove this officer did X? And they could all just lie and say yes, life sentence. Or yes, death penalty, regardless of whether he did it or didn't. It's a jury of your peers. I mean, if you don't have faith in the system of being represented by due process and with a jury of your peers trying you and a judge sentencing you, that's the problem. That's the real problem. Any other weird things like, well, maybe police officers should have like special like Muay Thai training so they can like knee strike them. It's like maybe, but like why don't we feel like if things go wrong, accountability if justice will not be served, having Krav Maga badass out there, palm striking people in the face doesn't change anything. It doesn't make things better. If when they do go too far and do for one of like the death strikes, they go for some, like Liu Kang spinning kick and take your head off, like, what if they don't have justice then? It's like, well, they have more training. So what?
So Francis B says deputize Antifa. I'm sure he's probably just speaking hyperbolically. Don't think that's a good idea, or else we would have 1,000 shootings instead of one. Virginia M claims police officers are not getting due process in this case. There's an argument for that. Craig Coleman says something interesting that I actually agree with. Says there was another cop there. There was no way he was going to take his gun. That's a farce. That's why when putting myself in the shoes of that officer, I don't understand why he drew his gun. Yes, there was a taser pointed at him. And if I were alone and I were in his shoes, that would be my first thought. That, okay, this dude's got to go. I'm an immediate threat for my life because if he tases me, I'm toast because nothing's stopping him from pulling a gun. However, if you got your partner 20 feet behind you and you know that he's competent and he's capable, a lot of those evolutionary fears are assuaged. So I do not understand why in the case of this officer in Atlanta, the use of lethal force was engaged in with a freaking sidearm.
I would tell you this. I would say the silence we're hearing, the fact that there's literally there's nothing on the scanners and they're walking off, it sounds like his fellow officers disagree. Disagree with him if you want. I'm not saying what I think or don't, but it sounds like they disagree, man, because listen to this. This is starting to get crazy now.
Wait,
Minutes,
so you're
just
saying they
silence.
disagree with him being fired?
They obviously think he had a reason to pull his gun and fire.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just saying, they're
yeah.
saying that by refusing to show up for work when he's charged for murder. They're saying that by, again, you could hear this in the background, I hope, this scanner silent, this buzz. Just nothing, man. They're just not saying anything. I can't imagine there's nothing going on. No one's speeding, no fender benders, no one's yelling at their neighbor. Nothing's happening in the southeast part of Atlanta at all. I can't imagine that. CNN's confirming they're just not answering. And yeah, we could literally hear they're just not answering.
Yeah.
So like I said, we could sit here and argue all we want. But what do the players in the actual game have to say? It appears the officers are saying, we do not stand for what's happened to him. However, the state has decided to charge the one officer for murder, pressure the other one with enough charges where he's complying. He's just basically going with whatever they're saying, I guess. So we'll find out what he's going to do later. And then the local police have responded by doing this. The people in the area responded a few days ago when they burned the Wendy's down and protested and rioted at the Wendy's, I guess, and then protested in other parts of town. So everyone who actually has input is making it. So I guess we could say what we think they should or shouldn't be doing, but I think it's just worthwhile to note what's actually going on, right? Like whatever we think of is what we think of, but what's actually going on here, and this is getting kind of crazy.
Yeah, so Killa Quick says, just admit the cop effed up. I don't know enough to say that, okay? I'm not in his head, and unless one of his partners comes out and says something drastic like, yeah, I knew he was going to do something bad tonight and, he had a predisposition to this kind of evil or whatever, then I can't fry a guy when he's got a taser pointed at him for reacting drastically because he may have perceived that his life was in imminent danger. I can't lambast a guy like that. Don't think it was the choice I would have made, but I could see how somebody could make a bad decision under duress of what they perceive as immediate violence, okay? So I'm not going to come out and just say admit that he effed up. I'm going to let the courts decide that. The only thing I want to make sure is that civil rights are not violated in this process. Okay. It looks like the civil rights of this man who was pulled over for the DUI was violated because his civil rights were violated in the sense that, he wasn't detained peacefully. Okay. So we've got the first civil rights violation there. Cruel and unusual punishment, getting shot in the back, okay? Civil rights violations number one, okay? You don't correct the first civil rights violation by now giving civil rights violations to the police officers. We have to give them due process. Everybody deserves due process, and we're not. The people that didn't grant that due process need to be held accountable. But now we got a bunch of people that are pissed off because there's a history of violence in many of these urban areas because you got a bunch of police unions that have been protecting all cops regardless of how accountable they should be ad nauseum for all kinds of heinous crimes, okay? You've got a media that wants to sensationalize a lot of these heinous crimes. And then you've got good police officers who've been absolutely lambasted for trying to report the bad ones. And now it seems like you've got police unions that are never willing to help out the whistleblowers, always willing to protect those upon whom the whistle was blown. And that leads to just insane frustration. I mean, JFK himself said, when peaceful change is made impossible, then violent change becomes inevitable. And you're looking at that. The people are pissed off. It's kind of like Dave Chappelle said, the streets are talking. I don't condone the violence of the looters or of the protesters or of those burning down buildings. But at the same time, these are areas that have been complaining for a very, 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 very long time about incompetent policing. And those budgets in those police departments have gone up and 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 up. And it doesn't look like it's going towards good training. Navy SEALs train for 3 months to go out on a 1 week job.
Okay, but again, what if people don't think that the institutions work correctly? The training doesn't matter. Again, just because they, Karate Kid crane kicked me in the head to kill me and then don't get prosecuted for
No,
it.
but I'm
I don't
talking
think
about
people are going to be
why
like,
not
wow,
train
at least
it? No, if they could train in solid de-escalation, kind of, hey, what's going on? Hey, talk to me, man.
but
What's up?
You can train them all you want.
If they could decompress one day on, one day off.
Tell you what, man, come up with that training, you'll be worth trillions of dollars because no one ever has. It's one of the funniest things to me. I love this idea that, like, there's no offense to anyone here, but there's people out there, like, teach leadership. Tell you what, every military for human history has tried to teach leadership and failed at it because you can't just teach it. Every coach of any team's ever tried to teach leadership. Some people can do it, some people can't.
That's charismatic leadership. But you can train a good force of people.
You can't train perfect decision making into chaos. You can't, man. You could try and screen for it, maybe, but you can't train it.
But also, no, yeah. What do you mean you can't train good decision making? What is jujitsu?
Dude, what? So tell me the jiu-jitsu guy who trained to the point where he never lost because he never made a bad decision.
No, but it makes it so when you're punched in the face, you don't react.
My point is this.
Okay.
Just because you know how to do something and you've been taught to do it, and you could drill 1,000,000 hours, when you get between the lines, so to speak, sometimes you'll just do it wrong. You'll just miss. You'll jump when you shouldn't.
Yes, but the chances of you missing go down.
They do go down. But the problem is that when it does happen, as it invariably will, that's when people get really upset because they don't feel it's handled properly after. That's my only point. Again, just because the SEAL Team 6 badasses kill people a little bit less, if they're never held accountable for it, it wouldn't change anything. So what is the accountability process here? And I'm just thinking it's interesting. You're looking at an increase of the accountability process from what's going on in Atlanta, and you're seeing the police respond but just not show up.
Well, I
honestly don't know what to think about this, but it's pretty crazy to see. So that's what's going on.
I don't think police officers themselves or anybody would ever have a problem with being held very accountable if they were given exquisite and extensive training. But they're not. They're told to go out there and do a good job and handed an instruction booklet and it said, spanked on the bottom and said, good luck. And then lambasted when something goes wrong? No. If you're willing to train me, and once a week I'm going to de-escalation courses, trained on how to deal with people that are drunk, trained twice a week on how to deal with people that are roughhousing and are violent, trained once a month on how to be a crisis responder for domestic violence and so on and so forth. But let's put this in a different context. Let's just say a police officer shows up. Young woman's been beat to a pulp. There's the boyfriend there who's drunk and is wailing on her. And the cop gets super pissed and then just beats the crap out of the guy. Okay, that's a violation of his duty. He's out of line. He will get sued. He might lose his job. Okay? Had he been trained more often on how to de-escalate a scenario and deal with those enraging situations as a man, he may not have beaten up that guy. So I don't think people care about being held accountable if they're given extensive training.
Who cares if they care about it or not? People are upset and protesting across the country because they believe the accountability isn't there. My only point is this. Yes, it would be great if every cop was the uber-trained, badass Navy SEAL. That would be awesome. I agree. However, if they're never held accountable, the same protests we see today will continue forever. That's my point. So why don't we start at the back end of what's actually causing the protests and then work our way back to clean up everything on the other end? Because if people did feel like there's more accountability held, there'd probably be less anger. And I don't see how, even when we get to the point where we have courts that hold police officers more accountable and the super badass Master Chief out there laying down the law with his karate moves, even when we get to that point, if something breaks down and people do feel like that officer stepped out of line, did something he shouldn't, and was protected by the system, it will still be to that point. You see what I mean? Like, people aren't out there in the streets protesting, cops need more training, cops need more. They're protesting, they're not being held accountable. Saying that cops are allowed to get away with things they shouldn't be allowed to get with. And so I think addressing that by saying, you're right, we should train them more, it's just weird. It's like, it's not addressing the point. The point is that when they do step out of line, there's no accountability, and they step out of line too often. It's two separate things. But I would say the accountability is what angers people more, because that seems to be, because like most people do understand you can't, even like I said, you train them all you want, you do whatever you want. Even in, for example, the Navy SEAL branches of the military, people commit war crimes in those branches. They go.
Well, that's what you bring up. Like, I mean,
that will always
you
happen.
got to watch the Jocko Willenick interview.
Taken care of, I think that will ease people.
Yeah, you got to watch the Jocko Willenick interview on policing. He brings up the Miley massacre, and that's what happens when guys aren't given a chance to decompress. We got some interesting comments here in a super chat we're going to get to. Bobby Jackson says, so will Atlanta be on fire and chaos tonight due to no cops, or nice and calm as the protesters kind of get what they want?
I can't tell you because the scanners are just silent. According to the scanners, again, I've been playing this entire time, nothing will happen because nothing's happening now, but who knows?
Yeah. Mark Watson says, yeah, tell a cop you're a constitutionalist and you're traveling, not driving. See what happens. Okay. It depends on the cop, I guess. That's if you were slow enough to get caught. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, my melanated scope, thank you very much for the super chat. I have several cop friends who told me we aren't doing anything. We don't plan on doing anything bad. Why worry? They compared it to the CEOs and managers who complained during the #MeToo movement. Okay, what's that mean? They compared it to the CEOs and managers who complained during the #MeToo movement. I got to tell you right now, I can understand, and usually I'm a little bit happy-go-lucky where I'm like, I'm a good person. I'm not planning on doing anything bad. Why worry? I'll go out and serve. But right now, you could get fried for a technicality, and that technicality will be bumped from incompetence to murder 3. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, I'm not saying that's the case here in Atlanta right now. I'm just speaking generally, okay? So I could see right now where a lot of people that might generally even be of the mindset of, look, I'm not a bad person. I'm not going to do something stupid. I trust myself, so I'm going to go out there and serve. I can see why a lot of people, after seeing what's happened to police officers in the past week, I mean, they're getting fed razor blades, for heaven's sakes.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. So, well, it was allegedly the bleach, and then allegedly the razor blades,
I'll tell you what.
and then allegedly the glass in the pizza dough.
If they're indeed not true, all those stories worked their wonder on you, man.
No, I get it, and I'm willing to say it is allegedly fine, okay? It's just a little bit sus when all 3 happen in 1 week. If it was any individual one story, I'd say, yeah, I know a million guys that worked at a restaurant and while cleaning probably dumped bleach in the cups like boneheads because they didn't know what they were doing. And, one time I accidentally broke a glass of pizza crap and some glass got into it when my sister was young. So I could see how in pizza sauce there could be small shards of glass. And the razor blades, don't know how you'd explain that one, but I just call it a one-off. I could see that, except for all 3 happening in 1 week. You're right. I don't want to be a media mark. Yeah. But at the same
That's
time...
That's literally how it works. They just pull stories they always have floating around. I always pull 5 of those, throw them in front of people's face today. Freak them out. And they do, and it works.
Hey, if you're trying to tell me the media lies to us and then we need to think twice before they believe them, I am 100% in line with you. 100% in line.
Yeah. That's basically, yeah, they just... Yeah, they'll say whatever they have to say.
So all I'm saying, though, is that the average person looking at that is going to think, gosh, I don't want to be a cop. You're pulling up an article.
Well, I just want to get back to CNN is updated because this is interesting. There's something else going on. I honestly, I guess I hate to say it, I'm not going to give all my I don't have too many opinions of what's going on. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in Atlanta and nationally, but the facts are this. So this was interesting to me. So the attorney for the partner of the officer who actually shot the individual, there's contention over whether or not he is a state's witness. According to the state, they have said that he's agreed to be a state's witness. However, the officer's attorney has said that he has not agreed to testify and he's absolutely not guilty of any crime and will not plead guilty and has not agreed to be a state's witness. So the turmoil, I mean, really all I can say is going on is there's absolute turmoil in the Atlanta police and just it's like the city of Atlanta right now. Again, I have not heard one thing come over the police scanner in the last 20 minutes or whatever, coming out of the one of the zones in Atlanta. They're saying police aren't responding. Guess they aren't. You can tell. You can hear nothing. And now we're also seeing. So what is this? Is the deputy and the others going to fight like hell? Are they going to say, no way are we guilty of this? We are justified in what we did. Like I said, it seems to be their other officers agree with them that they're justified by the fact that they walked out when they were charged. I mean, just straight up, they're not showing up. That's the reports we're getting. CNN has confirmed that, yeah, indeed, people aren't. I thought it was funny. There was a tweet. I'll see if I can pull it up a couple hours ago from Atlanta being like, well, people aren't walking off the job. It's just an unusually high volume of people calling out. It's like, oh, okay, that's another way of phrasing it. But then getting to this, and now we're seeing. Interesting. It's very interesting to see because here's the thing now. They are arresting and prosecuting these officers. In some cases, people say, why are they not being arrested and prosecuted? Now they are. And like I said, we're seeing the reaction from the police when that does happen.
So we got another super chat here from My Melanated Scope. Thank you very much, My Melanated Scope. Interesting insight here. It says, secondly, I work as a violence interceptor in Chicago for about 7 years now. Hey, in the chat, let me know a little bit more about that. That's really, really interesting. I want to hear more from you. He continues to say, I've had guns pulled on me, gangster threatened me. I've never had a gun or had to beat anyone senseless, humanize people. Look, I agree. And people like you, I think, need to be leading the charge on some of these trainings. I really 100% think if you look at the schedules of police officers, they're overworked, okay, in the amount of hours that they're on duty in comparison to how many hours they're allowed to decompress. okay? And then I also think they're undertrained. I was talking to a friend who was a hand-to-hand combat trainer for LA County Sheriff's Department, and he's like, yeah, dude. Like, I just dot around to all these different places, and I think I train an officer for like 2 hours a year. And that's like if they want to come in and they don't choose to do weightlifting instead, because you can like choose the two. And then I talked to another sheriff who said, yeah, it's true. Like, I actually had to ask my superiors to be able to go take some, like jujitsu or Krav Maga classes or whatever, in order to help train us to be better without having to use our guns. And I had to be proactive about it instead of it just being part of the program where we are just training men to be that way. Okay. So thank you, my melanated scope, for the super chat. I want to hear more about your interventions there. Jonathan Trejo says something interesting. He said he would still be alive and out of jail within a day if he wouldn't have tried to get away and threaten the officers. Yeah. I mean, this narrative of the officers are the bad guys out to get you has permeated so bad in so many cultures that now it's really an us versus them attitude. Like, why in high school isn't there a how to get pulled over without freaking out the cop? Because you got to put yourself in the head of the cop too. You know what I'm saying? I've had a ton of friends that were cops that said the scariest situation is when you're rolling up.
That's become your now. Why isn't there a high school class on?
Yeah, because we need emotional intelligence.
How to repair.
We need emotional intelligence.
They don't need a high school class on everything, okay? And honestly, no one wants to hear this because it's not good for the headlines or clickbaity. But yes, the majority of interactions in general go off pretty poorly. Pretty much nothing happens. I wonder how many terabytes of footage of film police encounters where literally nothing happens, just buried in people's phones. Oh, someone got pulled over. Oh my God, I'm gonna fit. And then they just give him a ticket and leave.
Yeah.
Or they don't give him a ticket and leave. Now the thing is, one of the reasons why we highlight when that doesn't happen, one is because it's unique, and then two, because we want to change what happens at those instances, right? Like, if this is what always happens, if you pass out in your car drunk and cops just pull you over and execute you, this wouldn't be news, because it would just be, yes, that's what happens. It's news because generally it doesn't like this. So it's like I said, I hate to be the Debbie Downer here, but for the most part, trying to reinvent how we do everything, change high school course, everything, because there is some small stuff I think they can be cleaned up other ways. One, I think if officers felt, and here's the other thing though, right, is that there will, of course, then obviously be the moment where an officer goes, I don't want to go to jail for life because I'll go to jail for life if I kill this guy, so I'll let him go, and then that guy gets away and kills somebody. And then it's like, well, damn, like somebody had to die there, and the criminal was the one who did the killing. That's obviously inevitably going to happen as well. So you have to just say what's more palatable. In our legal system, we have decided what's more palatable in a lot of ways. That's why we have that's why we have due process and stuff. We said it's better that guilty people can beat the system than innocent people stand no chance.
Well, Thomas Jefferson himself said it's better that 7 men walk free than 1 innocent man be imprisoned incorrectly.
I think some people have said something to that effect. Yeah. Exactly, to that point, right? Like that's how we are for a while, right? The legal system worked in this country was to that effect. So we have to make the decision, right? Like, is it police officers should have no leeway, and we're really going to be very strict, and even if they maybe kind of were justified, if it's just not quite good enough or the public didn't like it. Here's the other thing, right? They are essentially public servants, right? I mean, why can't the public decide an officer's guilty? I think it's bad and wrong because it lead to mob justice, but they work for them. Why can't they decide if they're fired or not? Maybe not prosecuted for crimes, but fired or transferred out of the city.
So repeat that question
Why
again?
can't the citizenry petition to have an employee paid by their tax dollars to service them fired or moved elsewhere if they don't like them?
That's actually an interesting question, and I brought that up.
An aside, right? But I just think...
Well, no, it's not that much of an aside, though, because I had actually suggested that when I had to present in a debate the merits of merit pay for teachers.
That was so funny. Someone just said, hey, turn the scanner off. I was like, I forgot it was even on, and someone barely chirped into it. But I will turn it down just because I think it's fascinating. You could have heard nothing, silence for a while now.
For those of you that are just tuning in, we're actually listening to the police scanner Atlanta, and there's absolutely no activity because it looks like in a lot of these areas, at least in areas 3 and zones 3 and 6, the cops are refusing to show up because they don't feel like they are going to be represented. So, Sly Cactus asks, by the way, are we still doing call-ins today? We will respond to your scanners. Yeah, you know what? this whole thing kind of has overshadowed the call-in a little bit, so we might have to postpone that tomorrow. Unless, Cody, can we still do call-ins today?
I mean, just for like we could do like one. Like we're getting a little bit later in time. So like
Yeah, so you want to just try one? Because we were going to start out with
honestly,
call-ins.
I'd rather not tonight.
You'd rather just wait until tomorrow?
I'd rather pick a cooler night. No offense, but I'm in no mood to just argue with someone right now over something that I've very little opinion I'm trying to figure out. Maybe you would prefer to. But.
Yeah. So I do have to say that I see both sides of this argument. Like, I really do. And I really like you saying, why can't the citizenry vote out a bad cop? Because I'd said the same thing about teachers. I said there should be a 3-tier system for teacher accountability. First off, some of it is testing because the world relies upon tests and tests are part of the reality. Some of it has to be test scores. Second, it has to be what the administration and your other teachers think about you. Because having clout amongst your professional class, I think is an important aspect of being a teacher. But then the third should be the parents. So if like 29 out of 31 parents want to see you gone, there's a threshold that's reached where you have to be transferred. All right. Or if maybe your principal wants to fire you because you're a different type of teacher, but the parents love you, then you're saved. You know what I'm saying? But I really think there should be like a 3-part balance of powers for both paying and suspending a teacher instead of there being these unions that just protect all of the pedos, okay, and protect all of the incompetent teachers, protect all of the child abusers at full benefits, full pay, and full retirement. Driving up the expense of education, making it so the good teachers have to work harder and receive less, while the bad teachers get to sit on their duffs reading the newspaper in the rubber rooms.
Okay, but wait.
And it's no different than the bad police unions. Okay. Bad teachers unions for education are just like bad police unions.
How do unions exist, though?
What?
These people that they're defending, they're their customers. Are they not? Are the teachers not the customers of the union? They're kind of compelled customers, but they pay the union, and the union gives them benefits. They subscribe to the union more or less.
Yeah.
So yeah, they look out. The customer's always right. I think that's the structure of the union is the problem. They're always going to function that way. Why would a union's like, yes, I want to punish my customers? No.
So maybe it's time to get rid of the police union, the teachers union, and just have solid, just IA protocols.
That's interesting. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Just have solid internal affairs protocols where it's like, okay, look, you've been accused of something. Now you have civil rights. Your job will be, you have the right to an attorney. You have a right to everything. And this is going to be paid for by the department. And we're going to sift through this line item by line item, second by second on your body cam. And guess what? If you're justified, you're going to walk free, 100% clean record. If you are unjustified, then if it's grievous, you'll be fired. If it's not grievous, it'll just be put on your record. And after 3 years, it's expunged or whatever, you know, but there needs to be solid protocols. It's not going to be where it's like, yo, come work for us, Johnny. Yeah, it's a good job, you know? And don't worry, if you mess up, you shoot a guy in the back of the head. Well, guess what? You know, the police union, they always defend you. You know what I'm saying? No, it can't be like that. And that's what it's become. And then also on the same token with the citizenry, you know, you joke about saying there should be a class about how to be pulled over and whatnot. But I got to tell you, I've heard cop after cop say you have no idea how scary the situation of walking up to a tinted car with people you don't know are in it, in a place where you could get shot in the face.
Hey, dude, imagine how scary.
And nobody would be there to find you.
Imagine how scary it would be to go toe-to-toe with Mike Tyson in a ring. He could punch your block off. Yeah, you goddamn signed up to do it. I don't care, okay? I'm not even the way when people are too critical. I hate that. Well, you have no idea how tough my job is. Cool, quit. Don't do it. If it's so tough you got to cry on my shoulder, don't do it. Find a new job. Or accept the fact that it's tough and do better.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
That's how I feel about everything.
There is an aspect of accept
if it's that bad.
There's an aspect of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and accepting a job that's tough, or else not doing it. But at the same time, would anybody, the most mentally tough person in the world, would get worn down if year after year after year he had to be put in a vulnerable and difficult situation that could be mitigated simply by teaching people how to deal with officers better. First off, I think we have way too many traffic stops anyway because half these speed limits are stupid and half of these traffic rules are just voted on by city councils to raise revenue. I'd much rather just pay a 50 cent a year tax than be constantly playing chicken with the police officers in town about whether or not I'm going 45 in a 35 mile per hour zone. Okay. So we need to stop half of these traffic stops. But I think it wouldn't be bad to educate the citizenry in saying, look, cops are human too. They have families they want to go home to as well. And here's a lot of vulnerabilities that happen. Cops get jumped on. They get shot in the face when they're pulling up to a car. The most dangerous situations they put themselves in, 27 of the last 35 fatalities of cops happened at traffic stops or whatever. So they're very stressed out as well. You need to make this a less stressful experience for them, and they'll probably get off with a warning instead of a ticket. It will benefit you. Like if we're teaching teen issues classes on how kids shouldn't get pregnant and how they should avoid drugs, what's wrong with teaching kids some basics of how to get pulled over without escalating the situation?
Because that the notion that the state is forcing my kids to sit in a room while they explain how the state's enforcers will be detaining them is just weird. It should be set up in a way where even an idiot can get pulled over and didn't go to school and not have. Here's the thing: if they cause problems, they should get them. That's the thing. It's like. I understand that being a police officer is a scary, dangerous job and bad things can happen. It's one of the reasons why I'm typically not for the throw them away and lock them away and you throw away the key kind. I'm not generally for that because I get that there's a lot of stuff to it. It's just, I don't want to hear them say, well, you don't get it. My job is dangerous. I do get it. I mean, maybe some people don't, but I do get it's dangerous and scary. That's why I wouldn't do it. And some people do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. It's one of the things I honestly bristle at this notion of, they should create something that's not a police officer to deal with like some lesser crimes and stuff. It's like, why? Just so they could show up and get beaten up and then force the cops to come deal with what's now an assault? Like, there is a reason why police officers carry guns. And the original intent, as far as I understood it, was that's just the end of the escalation. Instead of I push you, you push me, I punch you, you punch you, I try to stab, you try to stab, and then it just builds and builds and builds. Hopefully, if you draw a gun, they stop and the thing stops there. As far as I always understood, the point of giving them guns is not to get in gunfights if you have to, but it's so there isn't. And then now it's changed, and there is this constant back and forth of rising escalations. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I didn't think we literally see it now. Where you're just back and forth of, well, I'll use this gun, I'll use this gun, I'll use this. Now I guess I got my real gun. That's literally what happened. I'll taser you. I guess taser didn't work, or I think he actually dropped the taser.
No, he stole the taser.
No, the officer who fired on him said he had the taser in his hand. He thought he was being shot at by a gun, dropped the taser, and fired back. That's what he said. Who knows what he thinks or not. But yeah, it's a crazy, dangerous job. That's why I do think it's one of the reasons why I've been making the point time and time again. It's not only for people like us to argue about, and it's only for things like courts and judges. And if people have a problem with how the courts and the judges and the juries work, that's where the intention should be focused, is my only point. It's, in my opinion, a fool's errand to think, you know what? We're going to get people to stop abusing power. We're going to get people to stop being angry and violent when they shouldn't be. We're going to get people to stop abusing, just taking liberties with their job. We're going to stop murder. Love that. Love to stop murder. I don't know how we're going to do it. We have a police force that tries because they're murdering people, so I guess it literally is impossible to, right? Yeah. Instead of trying to deal with like really weird, like base human flaw stuff, why don't we deal with people having problems with the courts and what happens then? And then we'll work back there. I just that seems to be a way that literally gets things done and changes things that would help people. Trying to make super cops isn't going to work. I don't think. I don't think. Even like the accountability
not
of
super cops, just
more,
very well trained in de-escalation and dealing with the human conflict scenarios.
Dude, I legitimately am pretty sure like the FBI's people who specialize in that, and even they like don't work all the time.
Okay.
It would help, I agree, but I think it'd be better to just have a system in place where we feel like if people step out of line, they're actually punished.
Okay, so Sky says, by the way, for those of you guys that are just tuning in, we're actually listening to the Atlanta Police Radio right now.
I'll pull it back up.
And, well, I thought...
Raise it 3608.
No, sorry about that.
Oh, that was kind of loud.
Yeah,
it's
sorry
okay.
about that, guys.
And basically nothing's going on. Nothing's going on. You've got an update here you're going to show in a second. Let me read through these comments first.
Some more chatter now.
Okay. But Sky says he was drunk with a weapon and had already assaulted the cops, which is a felony if the cop believes he would have harmed the public he is allowed to shoot. He had committed multiple felonies. Okay, well, that's going to be in the cop's defense, and we'll see how that argument falls out. And I think there's a lot of people that agree with you. On the other end, Lord Draco Malfoy says, remember when a white cop was a serial killer called the Golden State Killer? Don't you remember? ? I don't like necessarily the term the white cop. It was a cop. There was a black female cop that was a serial killer in Georgia as well. I mean, there's plenty of people, believe it or not, that enlist in the military or in law enforcement because they're a little bit bloodthirsty. And unfortunately, they end up becoming psychotic, especially if they have those mental illnesses and whatnot. And you have to do our best to try and screen those people so they don't become members of law enforcement. And yes, I do remember, I don't remember if it was called the Golden State Killer, but I believe one of my friend's fathers is writing a book on the Golden State Killer and was the judge of the case and has a lot of original documents. And I was going to interview him for another show on the local radio station. So, yeah, actually, you'll be hearing from us on that a little bit later, at least from me. Darcy says BLM, and Jonathan Trejo says, oh, no, I'm sorry. Jonathan Trejo is responding to somebody else. JFB, thank you very much for the super chat, saying, I'm interested in doing a call-in one day. LOL. Well, we're interested in hearing from you.
Tomorrow, we'll have to just legitimately schedule it in.
Yeah.
That's all we're doing tomorrow.
Well, we were planning on doing it today, except for this thing ended
I'm
up.
going to title the stream,
Yeah.
like legitimately just call in stream. We'll just do call-ins all day. I apologize. I've been putting that stuff for a while, but yeah, this got long. And again, I'm just going through it, and I'm just trying to show you guys what's going on. I mean, my opinion on this is that, like, I think if people think there's not being people held accountable, then that should be where the focus is. I think no offense to everyone in chat doing this, I think a bunch of people sitting around on their ass saying, well, I would have in this situation, clearly, blah, 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 blah. Don't matter, man. It's for the birds. No one cares, okay? Like, I think it's more interesting and worthwhile to talk about what is physically, literally happening, who is making the things happen, and what they could do. I mean, a bunch of random people sitting around discussing, like, well, I think that this happened. Oh, I think that. Dude, what's literally happening is both cops were arrested. One was fired. One's being put on leave. One's being charged with murder, a bunch of other felonies. One's being charged with a bunch of other felonies. He may or may not be turning state's witness. I don't know. And police are probably walking out across Georgia. We have another person here saying that Georgia police sources tell Todd Starnes that 2 police precincts are staffed in the entire city of Atlanta. Entire zones of officers are walking off the job. Zones 1, 3, 5, and 6 have left their post with zones walking off the job. Now, we do still have the scanner running, I believe, from zone 6, but we heard some chatter a moment ago. But just because we're getting to what's going to be the end of the stream here, unfortunately, coming up soon. But that's legitimately what's going on. Should he have been charged for murder? I don't know. Is there a better law in Georgia they have than murder for this? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not the prosecutor. I don't know Georgia law. They have a lot of, like, believe it or not, there's a lot of laws against killing people. We don't just have one called murder. And we have multiple but for when you kill people when you shouldn't have. But then, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, what is this going to say, the police walking off, allegedly, or I guess confirmed to CNN, like this? What does it mean for other departments? Is this going to be a trend? Like you were saying, I agree. I can see it becoming a trend because it does probably feel like if there is the article you showed me earlier, we'll go see if I can pull that again. The way the police chief resigned is very interesting. So let's go through this again, like the timeline, like you said. Shields resigned hours after a white officer killed Rashard Brooks. Hours after the DUI stop. She said, it's time for the city to move forward and build trust between law enforcement and the community they serve. And just boned out. I'm done. They know. That's the scary thing, I think. And we're seeing officers know that, hey, man, it doesn't matter. They can make their case. They can say, well, you don't understand. I mean, people are referencing in chat. I've seen this referenced a lot. It is true. The very same man charging this officer with murder was on record when he charged other officers recently for the aggravated assault that a taser is a deadly weapon. So they're charged the way they were. He said taser is a deadly weapon. Using it against them, that's the way you charge the way you are. Now he's saying it's not. Because, yeah, this is a political game going on. Honestly, who knows the story behind it, but this does speak to how I feel sometimes. This woman was in a lose-lose situation, so she just said, I'm walking off. I'm not going to be the whipping boy. I'm done. I'm leaving. And, I mean, that's what I'm reading into, but, I mean, hours after it happened. Not hours after they were arrested, not hours after hours after it happened, she just said, I'm out. That is fascinating to me. And they mentioned she was one of the first American police chiefs to walk with protesters after the death of George Floyd. So maybe she was just so perturbed to see that going on in her own department. And that's possible. I'm just throwing some situations out there. To me, it feels like she was just like, I'm not going to deal with this stuff. I'm out of here. Well, no, I was charged for murder. I mean, hey, I don't blame her. She now would be the police chief. People would be calling her. Here's the funny thing. Yeah, who's the interim? Who's the interim whatever? So people banging on their door. Where are the cops? Why didn't they show up? That's going down in someone's head, right?
Yeah.
Not her. Smart. But very interesting. Just to see what's going to be the long-term ripple of this. What will happen in LA with LAPD when they just said, remember all the overtime hours you guys worked up for the protests against you, by the way? I'm sure they'll love that notion. You don't get paid for those.
Yeah.
All we could do is give you time off.
I was about to
Probably
say that's good.
I'll be taking some time off. It's probably going to be the response they get.
Yeah, and they've basically decided here in LAPD, instead of paying the overtime to a lot of well-intentioned cops who've been willing to put in overtime, which is difficult, we're not going to pay you for that overtime. Okay, well then A, so why work overtime if I won't get paid? And B, why come back to work for the job where I'm not going to get overtime if the only way you're paying me is on vacation time? So fine, I'm going to work 40% less, not 40% more. I'm going to work 40% less. So now when you need cops at a time when you should be paying them overtime and need them in overtime because there's heightened tensions and we're at DEFCON 4 here, you now have all the cops saying, screw it, forget it. I mean, that is an absolute recipe for disaster. We got a super chat here from Nathan Butcher. Good to hear from you again, Nathan Butcher. By the way, anybody else in the chat, make sure you hit us with these super chats. We're going to be wrapping up in about 15 minutes here. Nathan Butcher says police defunding from tickets is also police funding from tickets is also an issue. Yeah, well, believe it or not, it's not actually the police that get funded that way, at least in our municipality. In a lot of ways, it's actually just gaining revenue for the city.
Though, either.
Yeah, what'd you say?
We wouldn't have police either.
What do you mean we don't have police?
We have a sheriff's department.
Well, that's because our city is a very unique situation because we
subcontract. And sheriff departments, I believe, do function differently. I can't speak to how they fund police departments, but I do believe.
Well, what happens is the revenue goes to the city. Now, it's true that 40% of the city's budget does go to the police, so it is a roundabout way going back to them, but it's not directly to the police. It says they should be incentivized to. They shouldn't be incentivized to write X amount of tickets. Yeah, quotas are a massive problem. And a lot of police departments said they have gotten rid of quotas, but they do have performance goals, which is absolutely pathetic and antithetical to the idea of community policing, because every person you pull over just creates disdain for you, especially if it's something as stupid as just speeding, simple speeding.
I've been misquoting that number, by the way.
What?
According to CNN, it's $40 million that the protests in LA have cost LAPD, that the expenses will not be paid. So protests in Los Angeles, first over stay-at-home orders, and then the death of George Floyd. So it does seem they're counting protests for an extended period of time here then. However, here we go. Has resulted in large amounts of overtime work for officers of the LAPD, but they will not be paid for the time, according to an internal memo. The department will compensate the officers and time off instead. Like I said, they're probably going to get I'm taking a whole lot of time off. Could you imagine that? $40 million. People said, how could they change the rules on them like that? There's just no money. They can't pay them nothing. All they could do is say you don't have to. But here's the other thing. It's like, if I'm not working, I wouldn't expect to be paid. I'd rather be paid for when I worked, not just not have to show up to work. You know, this isn't a shift to the drive-through at Wendy's, right? This isn't the kind of thing where it's like, I would love to not be here. You'd imagine that it's kind of a career job. You're like, well, I'd rather just be getting paid to work. Yeah. I'd rather have not lost that money, but they lost that money. So we're seeing now, this is what's fascinating too. It did not seem like the dollars were being messed with in Atlanta. It had nothing to do with money from what I've seen in Atlanta. It was more about just what they thought what was going on with the charges of the officer. That's their chief protest. What does happen when we actually do start seeing, checks start missing for cops? Because here's the thing too. It's one thing to say people want to institute some, big reform efforts or whatever. Generally speaking, those will be phased in over time because we realize we can't just snap our fingers one day. But what if police kind of force the discussion and snap their fingers and don't show up one day, like in Atlanta? Where does the reform come in then? Because it's kind of hard to have snap reform, just because then you don't get to tailor it. You just got to pray, you got to write, otherwise those blow up in your face. Normally, you'll phase things in. For example, NYPD, I believe, got rid of their plainclothes division, so they're just reassigning the officers.
600 officers,
yeah,
I
but
believe,
still,
right?
That might be in steps to the defund or abolish movement, right? But even then, it wouldn't be just an overnight thing. You can't legislate that way, really. It'd be too difficult. But what if, it's just staged walkouts? I mean, they mention here that, check out this message they were given, LAPD. Said that during this extraordinary time, including the full mobilization of our sworn members, the department has expended more than $40 million in overtime expenses. By the way, you can give Father's Day gifts to CNN, I guess. I don't know how. This far exceeds any budgetary reserve to address unusual occurrences. And that's it. He said the overtime compensation policy applies to hours beginning June the 7th. According to the memo, before that date, sworn officers could accrue up to 150 hours of compensated time off, but that cap no longer applies, the department said in a statement. So yes, they're just bribing them with days off is indeed what's going on. And LAPD is also instructed commanding officers and supervisors to make every effort to ensure overtime hours are minimized. Wow. I mean, say what you want about police. If you've ever had a job in your life, imagine getting this memo from your boss. I recognize that you've worked tirelessly this past couple weeks. Your dedication and commitment have not gone unnoticed, but none of y'all getting paid. Wow. I know I would quit. I would quit. That's what my boss said to me. If he said, listen, we know you guys have been trying so hard, but there's just no money. I mean, like, I hate to say it, but if you still work there, you're a sucker. If anyone ever comes to you with that, just leave.
Yeah.
But just wow.
So
I
Ford
have to
family,
imagine this will extend to other states.
So Ford Family Folly says charges were filed on the Atlanta officers before the investigation was even complete. The DA went ahead and skipped all due process. Okay, I hear a lot of cop families complain about this exact same thing. So apparently you are allowed due process. You are allowed due process only if you are not a cop. Yeah, I think these things are important to get right, especially after George Floyd. These things are important, so they need to be done right. Neither side can be rushing to judgment in this. And when you're firing a guy before he takes off his bulletproof vest when he gets home, and charge him with murder one before letting some basic evidences come in, then it just all looks politically motivated. People are going to dig in their heels. It's going to become an us versus them battle, and everybody's going to be reacting not to the data and the evidence of this individual situation, but to preconceived notions that they have of, oh, they're at it again. They're at it again. You know, and I get it. I get why the black community would be like, great, they're at it again. They're shooting guys that are running away. You know what I'm saying?
But that's how literally everyone
and
feels.
And then
all the
the police families are going to be like, oh, they're at it again. They're lambasting us again for political crap. I mean, that's why this leadership is so poor. You can't act hastily like this and just give in to the mob. Because first off, which mob do you give into? There's two mobs outside. You think it's one? There's two of them. Okay? And second off, you can gain something to start a conversation if you act responsibly. If you don't and you act rushed and irresponsibly, you just make it worse. So I don't know what to tell these people. Sly Cactus asks if stripper cops are making money right now.
Hold on a second. I want to get back to a super chat we had earlier from Andrew McMillan.
Oh,
he
whoops.
said, is there an EMT or ambulance dispatch that might have info in Atlanta? I honestly, I don't know.
Gosh,
I think if you pull up the scanners, I guarantee that scanner does exist. I'll send the link to. Oh no, did I minimize it? I'll try to get the link into you guys so you can pull up the scanners. I feel bad I missed that super chat from before. But probably yes. I just have to find out what individual.
It's under the same.
Was.
It's under the same broadcast if I were listening before.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, like, I guess you could say conflicting reports, but I mean, CNN.
There's fire dispatch.
Yeah, no, but CNN is, as far as our police walking out, CNN is, they've got confirmed reports from the local departments that indeed, yes, they are having people walking out. And we also have just plenty of people just on Twitter and other journalists saying that, yes, they have heard that is what's going on. We had the police scanner running. You could hear. I mean, CNN was saying people are calling out at unusual rates. People were saying that they were getting word that there was multiple entire precincts unstaffed and the entire 6th area went about 20, 30, 40 minutes at a chirp, which I don't listen every night, but that sounds very unusual from what I understand from listening to a local scanner in a much smaller area. So that's all we can say about what's going on. They will. I think it's funny. Someone mentioned that. The Atlanta PD is saying that's not. Of course, Atlanta PD is saying no. We're not in disarray. Our commissioner didn't just resign as soon as she heard officers shot somebody. Surprisingly, and we didn't just have 2 officers charged for murder. There isn't contention over whether or not the partner of the officer being charged of murder is willing to turn state's evidence or not.
Yeah.
According to the prosecutor, he is. According to his attorney, he's not. He's either going to work with the state or fight like hell against them. Believe who you want to believe. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff going on, and it does feel like that was the response from Oh, here we go. We can hear some small chirps now coming through. It does feel like...
From a 6-3 seasons early.
It's hard to hear what they're saying. But it does feel like they are moving officers around, which is what's also going on. There's also been reports that in trying to get officers moved to Atlanta from other parts of the area, there have been some counties allegedly saying, no, we will not send in enforcement, but I have to imagine they're pulling in help. There's probably enough people willing to collect a check that they're probably bribing some people at this point with overtime or whatever that will come in and work, but Atlanta PD can say whatever they want. The cat's out of the bag. I mean, this is, of all people, not of all people, but I mean, like, CNN is probably not one to try to... I don't see why they would politically lie about this. I feel like this is a fact they would just report.
Yeah,
and this is that they report that Atlanta police officers are not responding to calls in 3 zones, which has been confirmed by sources within the Atlanta Police Department.
Yeah, so David Bertrand says she resigns. I'm sure he's talking about Chief of Police Shields. She resigned because she was told to fire the officer, and she refused because she knows it's a justified shooting. I'm not in her head. I don't know if that's what she's thinking.
But if there's someone like that, I mean, that does kind of sound like, who knows if she's not literally that, but to the point of just like, this happened and she was like, look, it doesn't matter what happened. This entire storm's about to come. I don't want to deal with this. I can't win.
Yeah.
So I agree.
I could see that. Then there's a large call on behalf of several people here to say, empty the prison. Empty the prisons. Yeah, if that doesn't sound like Scarecrow's plan and the Joker's plan and the Dark Knight, I don't know what does. Just empty the prisons. And then Mark Watson says, my 7-year-old didn't even know that people were defined by their race until about 3 weeks ago. Think about that. Yeah, that's true. It's why I'm trying to stray away from the terminology of African-American. I was trying to say black citizen because I want us to get back into saying citizen.
That literally is no different. That is the goofiest thing I've ever heard in my life. That is no.
If there is an absolute
that is just
definer
you trying
that
to be
needs
special and unique. I don't like to talk about people's race, so I just use different words.
No. If you have to mention skin color, I just say black citizen.
Right.
But I try and say citizen.
If you have to mention skin color, what's wrong with saying African American then?
Because you're the one that was the big champion of why can't we admit that they're all American.
You do this a lot. We'll be talking, and then you'll just clumsily misunderstand what I tell you and just say, that's what you think.
Re-educate me.
No, I agree. There's a lot of times when we put racial qualifiers on people we don't have to. A lot of times you can just call them man, woman, American.
Okay,
X, Y, Z.
That's all I'm saying.
No, you said this. I don't like African American. I like black citizen. That is goofy as hell, man.
Okay, okay. Sorry, let me ungoofify this. All right, I think we use the racial qualifiers far too often, so I try and use them less than what the average person considers necessary. And when it is necessary, I try not to use the hyphens. Jewish American. I don't say Polish American for me. I don't like a lot of those hyphens because I view them as divisive.
Okay. Anyway, riveting.
Okay. Don't mock me.
As we move up to the end, I'll try. I'll do my best. Any other things you want to say about this? Just because, just again, running through, we saw murder charges be leveled against the officer. His partner, again, also charged. Disputes there. In response, multiple officers in Atlanta walking off the job today and just not responding to calls, leading to a police scanner that's been fairly quiet. We've heard some stuff booping up. I just brought it up again, but it's been fairly quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, just what do you think of all this? And any other kind of like last things you want to say about any like other topics you want to get to?
No, we're going to be wrapping up here in the next 4 minutes. It is eerie having an empty police scanner. That's bad for all the good people and really good for all the bad people. And that is a concern for me. And I think, what precedent is this setting too? I mean, what are we going to do in LA? What are they going to do in New York? What are they going to do in Memphis? What are they going to do in Houston? I guarantee you there's a lot of police officers and police officer families who have had the same experiences that led the Atlanta police force to not show up to work today. I guarantee you a lot of those political happenings are happening in other police forces across the nation. And they're thinking the exact same thing. And I don't know if this is going to be a flash in the pan and that thing that you and I talk about a year from now saying, wow, do you remember the time all those Atlanta police officers didn't show up? And this is as bad as it gets. Or if this is the tip of the iceberg and if the dominoes won't fall and end up foreboding a much larger phenomenon of police just quitting, retiring, or refusing to show up to work. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We're seeing their response. There was a while where there was no I mean, if you do have two adversarial sides here, right? You have people protesting against the police, and then the police kind of were stuck dealing with the protests and stuff. Now that that's over, yeah, this might be their next move. Police officers will just stop showing up. So it'll be up to what's the response there. And what's funny, when you think about it, just if you do look at it as just a clash between two groups, right? Citizenry and police, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's going to be up to the citizenry to respond to what happens when the police leave.
Okay.
Because
repeat that last part.
Well, ultimately, ironically enough, the police. Okay, so people protest the police and try to get them defunded and prosecuted. So the police respond by just leaving and not showing up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that means the onus to respond to this then would go on the people protesting again.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting. What are the
What are you going to do? Beg them to come back? What?
Why would they? But at the same time, well, if they didn't need the protection, people were talking about what happened in Portland where there was protesters who got hit by a car and they called the police. Because, the police are always called. Yeah, what's going to happen the first time they do that and no one shows up?
Yeah.
They'll be forced to them. What's the response there? It's interesting. But this is... I do believe, though, this is when you actually could say things are legitimately escalating. One side has made their demands and they've gotten concessions from the government. So the other side said, fine, we're just going to walk away and do nothing. Interesting to see how the protesters are. I mean, it's weird to say protesters. Honestly, I struggle to wrap my arms around exactly what it is, everyone. But there's definitely multiple different groups and multiple different ideas. But what do? And the fact that it is multiple different groups, multiple different kind of plans and ideas, can they unify behind something and do it? So that's what I'm looking for after today.
All right. So if you guys have any super chats you want to get out of your system, make sure you hit us up right now. If you have any final burning questions, make sure you hit us up right now. As an aside, before we finish up the chat tonight, remember to follow us on Twitter at PSP Radio 1. Also, make sure you listen for our podcast on wherever you listen to your audio podcast. We upload the audio of this as often as we can, and make sure that you come here every night. We're trying to live stream every night this week. And am I missing anything, Cody? Oh yeah, tomorrow. We were gonna do this today, but we ended up getting a little bit sidetracked by listening in on the police scanner and so on and so forth. But we do have the Discord server up and running, so make sure that you check out the Discord server. Cody posts it in the comments on this video, and he posts it in the information tab on this video. And you can join us in the Discord chat in order to do call-ins tomorrow. We're actually going to have a call-in show tomorrow. So if you got any burning questions, make sure you save them up for tomorrow, where you're going to have a chance to talk to us live. Cody, do you have anything else you want to say before we go?
No, I'm good.
Okay, awesome. Sly Cactus says, can't we all just be bro testers? I think that's funny and hilarious. And two last super chats before we go. Thank you very much, JFB. Interesting talk tonight. Thanks for the hard work. Hey, thank you for recognizing it's hard work. Me and Cody work hard keeping this podcast and this live stream going. Just the posting alone is gnarly how much time it takes. Isn't it, Cody? Just the posting alone, you sit at a computer for 2 or 3 hours. It's crazy. And you just have that constant thought of, oh, geez. So thank you very much for recognizing it's hard work, JFB. And then Michael Alexander says, I'd rather we were at war with China than at war with ourselves. Dude, that's so true. And I personally believe, and there's a lot of other people that believe this, that the reason why all this is happening is because of the fall of the USSR. I really believe that once the USSR fell, and our collective energies could no longer be put towards an outward enemy, we began looking inward and turning on ourselves unnecessarily.
What about terrorists?
I believe not the same, man. Since the fall of the USSR, we have turned ourselves inwards, and it's a sad thing to see.
Hold on 1 second. Cardin didn't know what he was talking about. I'm going to post the link to the
Discord server, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to post it right here in the live comment. I don't put it in the comments, and it's not in the thing.
Okay.
So I apologize to anyone who went there looking for it. It's not there. I just put it in the chat.
Okay. I apologize. I meant to say it was going in the chat. I misspoke. Anyway, Michael Alexander, I'm finishing his super chat. He said, I'd rather we were at war with China than at war with ourselves, especially because eventually China will take advantage of our weakened state. Yeah, that's true. Jesse Ventura said a lot of these labels of left and right, conservative, Republican, Democrat, so on and so forth, are just labels created by the corporate and establishment political class, the corporate media and the establishment political class, as a way to, quote, divide the revolutionaries. And so I think it behooves us as revolutionaries to use them less often, because they only divide us. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for all your participation tonight. That's all I got to say about that. We will see you guys tomorrow. This is Problem Solver Politics. See you in the next video.